Well, I had been the CEO of Luton Airport and then came out and ran the legal mail system called the DX, and I ran that for 13 months before selling it and then going on to Bristol Airport because there was a job available. The reason I came to Birmingham was that when they advertised the post here, we had shareholders at Bristol who are also shareholders at this airport and encouraged me to apply. I did apply. And I did think when I came to Birmingham 5 years ago that there was a silver bullet, that it was going to be very easy to change everything. And actually the 5 years that I've been here has been a hard slog. It's been grindstoning. It's been turning that grinding wheel and moving the business forward very slowly. Very tough economic conditions, the worst economic crisis we've had for over 60 years. Yet in that time, what we've sought to do is reduce our cost base and at the same time invest for the future, recognising that as the economy turns, we need to be ready with our facilities for that passenger growth that will inevitably come. When the board appointed me in 2008, they said they wanted a transformation of the business. The transformation had to occur to the organisation, but also to the facilities. We'd still been operating out of facilities that were built in the 1980s and 1990s. And yet we're in the 21st century with very different demands from our customers, the airlines. But also, in terms of the markets that we were able to go to, it's important that we had the right facilities to be able to get into those markets. So our runway was too short. And therefore, if we want to fly to places like Beijing or Shanghai or Rio de Janeiro, you need a longer runway. So we've made the investment of putting a 400-metre extension on our runway. In order to facilitate that, we had to build a new air traffic control tower, new radar systems, new instrument landing systems, all the paraphernalia that's required to make the airport operate and to be able to cope with those aeroplanes flying those longer distances. At the same time, we sought to remodel the terminal infrastructure so that we had two terminals. We've put them into one, remodel that, put better shopping in, better catering in, to again position ourselves when the growth comes. Now, yep, we've achieved a great deal and we've got some new airlines coming in, but over the 5 years we've lost airlines too because the recession has forced some of them out of business. But because of the resilience of the Birmingham market, other airlines have replaced them and we are well positioned now for future growth. And I'm hoping that over the next few years we will see that growth come because, as President Clinton said, it's the economy, stupid. It's absolutely about the economy. And if the Midlands economy is thriving, we need air connectivity to get salespeople, managers, and then ultimately leisure passengers out to those places where they want to go to, whether that's China, whether that's India, whether that's Brazil. Wherever our people are manufacturing and selling their goods overseas, we need to be there. And that's why having the investment that we've made is so vital for our economy. One of the things that's going on at the moment is that the UK government has said there is a capacity crisis in the southeast of England. There isn't in the rest of the UK, but 20 million people in the southeast do fly more than the 40 million people in the rest of the country. However, what we've said is that we can help the southeast of England because of the great connectivity that we have today, the plans potentially for HS2, the upgrade in the motorway network that we're seeing across the country. Birmingham can play a greater role. And what we've set out is a vision for the future, because what government's looking at through Sir Howard Davis, who is leading the Airports Commission, he said, I'm looking for a plan that takes our airport infrastructure to the next 100 years. Well, Birmingham has got a role to play in that, and we're positioning ourselves by offering a vision that says we can have a runway to the east of our current runway, which will meet the demands of the UK, not just the southeast, but the UK as a whole, because of all the other things, all the other exciting things that are going on in our region, such as HS2, such as UK Central, such as upgrades to the classic railway system, and upgrades to the airport, and the great manufacturing that's going on here. So we've got fantastic ingredients. We're ready to mix it all together to make a really great pie. I don't think a new runway per se will give us new destinations. It will give us the ability of handling more passengers. So the runway extension that we've now put in place basically takes us to about 90% of the world's destinations that our passengers want to go to. There's no guarantee, of course, that any airline will do that. It requires the market to actually deliver that for us. However, having the capability, having the flexibility and resilience for growth is vital for us in terms of making sure that Britain remains connected to the world. And it's not just through London, it has to be through other airports, because you can't put all your eggs in one Heathrow basket. There are some concerns that people rightly have when you do airport expansion. What's it going to be the impact on the road and rail transportation? What's going to happen to the environment? The plans that we're bringing forward, I think, recognise those environmental concerns and allow us to grow whilst minimising the impact on the environment and the community. Well, a key thing for us is to make passengers travel by public transport ultimately, and therefore we need great public transport. Our existing public transport offering isn't bad. When you compare it to other airports, it's probably second to none. We're pretty well endowed in terms of airport activity and transportation, whether that's road or rail. However, we do need to improve the road system around here, motorway and local highway. We need to improve the capacity of the railway system. So classic rail is great. Classic rail of the Pendolinos and the local trains going north and south through Birmingham International Airport railway station. That's very important. HS2 will help, High Speed 2, although High Speed 2 I think is a misnomer. It should be called new rail capacity. We need new rail capacity because if we don't have the passenger capacity on the existing lines because of all the other competing things like freight and commuter trains, we need long-haul rail capacity, and that's what HS2 actually brings. You start to build that in here, and with the other impacts of widening the motorway system and bringing the tram potentially out to the airport, you've got a package of activity or package of operations that really make this even better than it is today. So I keep going back to the fact that we are the best connected airport. What government plans are in place, what local plans are in place, and what our plans are in place actually continue to make this the best connected airport in the UK. Well, we've been working with Air India, or trying to work with Air India for 5 years. And this summer we finally signed a contract with them which saw the aeroplane return to Birmingham. It flies 4 times a week currently from Birmingham to Delhi and then on to Amritsar, and that's great news for our community because we have an awful lot of people who want to go to India, not just to Amritsar, but now through the new Delhi hub in Terminal 3, which Air India has, to fly to many other destinations across India. What we've done with Delhi Airport is to say, how can we work together as sister airports to actually improve the connectivity at both ends, to actually encourage passengers from not just Delhi, but around Delhi and Hyderabad and Bangalore and Mumbai and Calcutta and all the places that now connect through Delhi to fly to Birmingham as a destination if their ultimate place of landing or place of visiting in the UK is not just London. And that relationship with Delhi Airport will see a sort of know-how and technology transfer between the two airports. How can we help them? How can they help us to actually benefit the air link to support Air India and hopefully make a profit for Air India so they continue to invest in the Birmingham market? Well, sometimes Birmingham gets a bit of a bad press. We are the second city. There's a lot in this city that's going on that's really, really good. And I think what the community can do, you rightly say, fly through Birmingham Airport, but it's talk up the proposition. If we talk up the proposition, start to believe in ourselves, that we are a great city, that we can do better, that we will aim high in everything that we do, we will have a better city for our residents to actually live and enjoy and work in. And I think if we can all come together to do that, it might sound a little philosophical, but actually aiming high has got to be what Birmingham's about. The airport company only employs 600. We're the glue that binds the place together and the lubricant that makes it work. The challenge for us is that we are operating still with some old technology. We still have buildings that were built in the 1970s and 80s. We've revitalised them from time to time, refreshed them, but we still have that basic stock issue, and that requires a lot of maintenance. But the overall impression the passenger gets is that the airport is a better place. We've invested in our people through a thing called Great People Programme to make sure that our passengers get a consistent experience as they go through the airport. And yes, we've made investments in bits of kit and equipment that make the airport better than it was, but we know we can do better. However, doing better means we've got to get more airlines in. And our job is very simple. Get airlines in, get passengers in, extract value from those passengers, hold our costs in place, and take the money that we make from that and reinvest a proportion of that back in the facility to make it better for the community and better for our passengers. The 9 million passengers that go through the current complex could double over the next few years because we have the facilities for that. But if tweaking here or there will take us to about 16 to 18 million passengers. But ultimately, off the single runway, off our one runway that we currently have, you can do about 30 million passengers, 35 million passengers, depending on the mix of aeroplanes that you put onto that runway. So we're hopeful that over the next 20 or 30 years, we can fill that runway up. But ultimately, if you build a second runway, theoretically you could have up to 70 million passengers. You could create a Heathrow-sized airport on this site. So that's a bit of a challenge, and it's a long way off. The point is, we must fill the existing runway up first, and the economic benefit that accrues from that is so vast that the community, for every million passengers we put through the airport, it creates between 500 and 700 new jobs. What the airlines all look at is what's called flown passenger data. And if passengers drive their cars to Heathrow, we never capture that data. So we need passengers to fly on our existing airlines, and sometimes it's inconvenient for passengers to do that, to fly via a different hub when there's a direct flight. But if they do that, what that leads to is the fact that you're now registered in the system as a passenger flying from Birmingham. And if you fly from Birmingham and you're going to Beijing or you're going to Mumbai, but via another hub, that registers, and that encourages other airlines to say, we will actually put direct services on to Birmingham. The Air Traffic Control Tower won an award for regeneration, which was bizarre. We never thought it was about regeneration, but someone told us it was. And when you think about it, actually, yes, it is. And it won one for pure design. And it's up for another award, I think, later this year, whereby it's now gone from a regional competition to a national competition, and we'll see what that brings. It's a concrete plinth that goes down, and if you look at the Manchester Traffic Control Tower, it's just a concrete plinth. What we sought to do, and did it very cost effectively, is put a skin on the outside that actually gives it a form and shape that is quite pleasing on the eye. And of course, during the Olympic year, we had those wonderful Olympic rings on the outside of the tower, which we unfortunately had to take down when the Olympics finished. But again, it just was an iconic design and was quite striking during the Olympic year. We're confident. It's challenging, but we're confident. I'm an eternal optimist. You've got to look for the future and say, the things that we are doing will deliver, ultimately. We're not doing this because we're philanthropic. We're not doing this because it's a crazy idea. We're doing it because it's a sound investment which will bring returns to our shareholders, returns to our customers, and returns to our community.